Hey, this is Nicole Kelly, host of Disarming Disability. Thanks for listening to the following show on Public House Media.
This is Bryce Burge, host of Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. After this episode, come join us on a trip around the soccer world as we discuss club and country every Tuesday. Stamp your soccer passport by subscribing on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your Public House Media podcasts. And thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
The latest headlines.
The Houston Astros, the defending World Series champions, got better adding Garrett Cole.
The insightful interviews.
Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. With how much emphasis is put on the position, yet how many over the last couple of years we've had questions. Why do we put such an emphasis on drafting a quarterback number one overall?
The bottom line is there's not enough good quarterbacks to go around. And I think with the new CBA, it's really a low-risk gamble now. If you look at the playoff teams, the common denominator, good quarterback play.
The hottest takes.
I think the guy to blame is the one guy who hasn't left yet. I think Russell Westbrook is one of the bigger problems in Oklahoma City.
Can all be found on Press Row.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Here's your host.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Christian Heimall.
Welcome on Press Row, everybody. It's Thursday, April 4th, 2019. It's been a while, I know. Been pretty busy here. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a couple shows in the last couple of weeks, but we're excited to be back and start off a brand new month with a great show for you guys. Chris Williams, my guy, Smooth, is going to join the broadcast. He's going to talk to us about the Final Four. We're going to preview the Final Four here, whether or not this is a surprising Final Four, given what we had at the beginning with Duke and Carolina and Gonzaga, Tennessee even, whether this has been an exciting tournament or not. And then we're going to touch on this. I really do believe this, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it, but if Virginia were to win the national title this year, it would be one of, if not the greatest stories in March Madness history. We'll get into this with Smooth in just a little bit. Your listener questions coming up as well. As always, you can be a part of the show. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. You can email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. Don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, share it with all of your friends. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker.com, Stitcher, as well as, of course, Spotify and the publichousemedia.org, www.publichousemedia.org. Head there, get all the great stuff that you need for this show because it's a great one, and we're excited to have you guys as a part of it. A lot to get to. You guys are asking questions about Conor McGregor, baseball season getting started and all of this, NBA playoffs coming around, LeBron being shut down. I want to start, first and foremost, with the big news earlier this week on Tuesday that the Alliance of American Football is basically over. Tom Dundon announcing and the league announcing on Tuesday that they have decided to suspend all operations as of immediately. The league owner, Tom Dundon, owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, gave a $250 million investment at the beginning of the year, basically took command. But it's really interesting to note why this all has happened here. There really has been no true reason for this. And it's really interesting to see this happen. You had some decent name players, Christian Hackenberg, Trent Richardson, Johnny Manziel was there most recently over the last month or so. You've had 400 to 500,000 viewers for each game, but there's a couple of reasons here that you shouldn't be surprised that this league has now stopped and will essentially go down as a failure. Two reasons, first and foremost. Number one, and what might be a little bit of the obvious one, is there was no true television partner here with the AAF. There was no real tremendous way to watch this on a national scale. You had great cities, don't get me wrong. You had good uniforms. You had decent players in this league. But you never had the true national exposure. It came on 2 weeks after the Super Bowl, or I should say a week after the Super Bowl, and there wasn't really a way to watch it. You could watch a couple games here or there, maybe. You had to go online, try to find them. But what makes the NFL so successful is that it is crammed down our throats from a national media standpoint. CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, ABC, they go out of their way to talk about the NFL. They stop programming on Sundays in the fall. There was a whole television network created strictly for the sport. And the Alliance of American Football was where? BR Live? Nothing against that, but you're not going to get that must-see viewing if you're not on national TV, if you're not there. It's one of the reasons why college basketball is so great, why the NCAA tournament, I don't know how many people realize this, the NCAA tournament wasn't always the national championship. The NIT, the National Invitational Tournament, was how you crowned a national champion in college basketball for the longest time. In the 80-plus years of the NCAA tournament, it switched when TV rights came into it and when money started being spent by television companies to broadcast these things. That's how the NFL became what it is. That's how the SEC has become what it is in football. That's why the ACC network might actually work, is because there is money being spent to put these teams on national TV. That wasn't the case with the AAF. So that's the first one. That's the main, probably most obvious reason to a lot of people why this is failing. The second one may not be what you guys are thinking, and it's come out a lot in the last couple of days. And if you're a listener of the show, you shouldn't be surprised at all, because we actually had this as part of our show a couple of weeks ago, back a little over a month ago. Brent Scrotenboer of USA Today Sports talked to us about this. He covered the AAF in its first season, and he mentioned with Dundon, when we asked him about the investment that he made after a week where a lot of people said it was because they couldn't pay their players, he said Tom Dundon isn't investing in this because of football. He's investing in it because of the technology. He sees the future of this, of what this league can present from a technological standpoint as it relates to gambling. And that is what has happened. He has found this gambling app. They have developed it. He has basically taken full ownership stake of this gambling app and shut it down. So now he has his golden goose, this gambling app. He doesn't need the AAF anymore. Why keep putting money into this? It's not going to succeed, especially when you got next year the XFL coming into play. And I don't think the XFL is going to succeed because realistically, I don't know if they're going to have the type of media coverage that they need. But you never know. And it's one of those things that you should not be surprised when you actually hear about it. Now, the XFL is in contracts with ESPN and Fox. They're in talks there, trying to see if they can get something put together. But again, that's kind of one of the reasons why the AAF failed. But the main reason is this gambling app, the technology, the future of sports gambling. And Dundon, in a league that the NHL, where it struggles at times to attract the U.S. fan, even though the Carolina Hurricanes are pushing hard for a playoff spot right now, they're not drawing nationally. But you add in this gambling app, and now all of a sudden people are paying attention. So you shouldn't be surprised at all. You really should not. The fact that the Carolina Hurricanes owner, Tom Dundon, who put in $250 million, is closing this down now that he has the thing that he really cared about. If you're Bill Polian and Charlie Ebersol, absolutely you're pissed. If you're these players, you should be. This is, the players, and I don't care what people say. These players I know have said, sources have saying that the teams have to pay their own way home, and people on Twitter are getting like as if that's a bad thing, as if it's a good thing. Like, well, you should. Saw one tweet where some guy says your job doesn't pay for your taxi ride home if they can you. I'll tell you right now, in professional sports, this is how it works. You pay for the players' travel to and from your city where you play in. You do. You pay for their travel to come in. You pay for their travel to go home. It's that simple. And the fact that this league is not doing that really kind of underscores the failure that has been the American Alliance of Football, or the Alliance of American Football. So don't be surprised that they're gone. Don't be surprised when the XFL fails for maybe a similar reason in the lack of media coverage. But the main reason the AAF failed is because sports gambling has taken over the world. And Tom Dundon wants to take over the world, apparently. And he did by taking over that gambling app. We're talking March Madness when we get back. Final Four is coming up this weekend. Chris Williams, NCAA Tournament Participant, college basketball broadcaster. He'll join us here just a little bit. You're on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Want to be part of the show? Go to Facebook and search Press Row Podcast Public House Media. Or find us on Twitter and Instagram at Press Row PHM. You can also email the program, pressrowphm@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth, co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Welcome back on Press Row, ladies and gentlemen. Here, Final Four weekend is upon us. One of the more exciting weekends of the sports year. You've got some great basketball lined up for you. Hope you guys do enjoy it. One man I know who's going to enjoy it because I always enjoy talking with him about it. I talk to him via text throughout the entire tournament, every single year it feels like. My former broadcast partner at Manhattan College. He is a NCAA Tournament Participant. He knows what it's like to be dancing. Chris Smooth Williams joins us, Manhattan Hall of Famer, college basketball analyst as well. Smooth, always good to talk with you, brother.
What's up, C? It's always a pleasure to speak with you, partner. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Not as good as John Calipari, though. A lifetime contract at Kentucky, which is something I've never even heard. I thought when you offer a scholarship to a 13-year-old, that would be the limit. But this is impressive. Let me ask you this. Number one, did you ever think there would be a lifetime contract given out? And then number two, has John Calipari in his time at Kentucky earned a lifetime contract?
Well, first and foremost, Coach Cal is doing much better than a lot of us receiving a lifetime contract. Number one, didn't think that would happen to anyone, but according to his track record down in Kentucky, he's laid it down where they feel this guy can be around for a long period. But we have short memories in this game. Things can change very quickly. But as of today, I think he has a lifetime contract. But if he doesn't win some games or some things go the opposite way, it could easily change.
It's impressive here, and the way it's structured, apparently, is a contract extension until he decides to retire, and then after that, he has a lifetime role as ambassador to the university. So it's not as if he gets to coach until he passes away or anything like that. But 10 years at Kentucky, 7 Elite Eight. Elite Eight trips, Final Fours in 4 of those years. Of course, the national title in 2012. But it's just maybe it's the fact that it's a lifetime thing, and it's a school like Kentucky that would do something like that. This is a school, as you said, Smooth. We have short memories in this game. Right. This is a school that expects perfection every single year.
One thing Coach Cal has done probably better than any other coach. He understands the system with the one and done.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, if you remember correctly, a lot of the big-time coaches were against it. You could take a guy like Coach K, said he would never take a one-and-done type player, but Coach Cal embraced it, understood how it works. He brings in guys who understand they want to be pros, put them in a situation where they get better as the season progresses, and at the end of the season, he knows this group will lead to go to the league, and he brings in another group. And if you take a look at his track record with guys in the pros, these guys have played very well. So if you take a look at all of those things, you have to say this guy's done a really good job at Kentucky in producing pros and these guys in the league, and they play much better once they get into the league.
It's interesting you bring up the one and done side of things because it's not official. It's still maybe a year or two away, but it feels a foregone conclusion that the one and done will eventually be eliminated and we go back to where high schoolers are allowed to head to the NBA. As someone who spent all 4 years in college playing, is that a good thing for college basketball to allow these high school seniors to make the jump straight to the NBA?
Well, I don't think it will be great for college basketball because basketball will be watered down. Mm-hmm. You won't have the best players at places where we would love to see them play, obviously. But as time goes along, I was a mid-major player. I wasn't in a position where I could be a one and done, so let's make that clear. I needed 4 years to get better as a player. And with that being said, you'll have mid-major teams who will be very good, and you'll have better tournament runs there. Like you take a look at a team, quote-unquote, like a Manhattan.
Yeah.
Within a 4-year span, a coach like Steve Masiello, he does well with player development. Mm-hmm. Within your 4 years, you get much better, so that by the time you're a junior or senior, you're ready to play and perform against those big-time teams. Whereas when you had the one and done, you were hoping and praying that you get a chance to play one of those type teams, and because of their youth and inexperience, you might have a chance against them in a one and done situation, meaning the tournament.
Speaking with Chris Williams, college basketball analyst here on Press Row. Let's get to the actual tournament here. It felt for a little bit like some people, the first 2 rounds maybe felt kind of a little boring to some people. Now, there were some great games, don't get me wrong. Of course, Iowa's comeback against Tennessee was huge. You had, of course, watching John Morant play was incredible on a national stage, and good for him to be able to do that now, declaring to go to the NBA. But then you got to the Elite Eight, and it really got exciting here over this past weekend. What have you made of this overall tournament so far?
Well, Christian, you bring up a great point. In the first 2 rounds, if you're an elite team, you just want to get past those 2 rounds. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get upset against a mid-major team. You want to get past those rounds so you can play against some teams you're more familiar with and just play basketball. So those first 2 rounds, really not a lot of upsets, 1 or 2 as expected, but pretty much the way we expected. But when you got to that next level of basketball, I think the level of play was great, some exciting games, so you could not be disappointed at the games we've seen recently.
Surprised at all to see any of these 4 teams in the Final Four?
Not at all. I think all 4 of these teams are well coached. They play very good defense, cohesive units, and a game or a play here or there could have went one way or the other, and you could have a switcheroo with some teams in the situations we're in. But I think these 4 teams earned their right to be here.
You look at it, and it's so interesting to watch this because these are the stories that you and I love, Smooth. I mean, you've got 4 teams in here. 3 of them, their programs have never been, 3 of them, their coaches have never been to the Final Four. You've got a couple of programs in that have never been to the Final Four in general, like in Auburn. And then you've got, Tom Izzo, a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest March Madness coaches we've ever seen. The storylines abound here, not to mention Virginia after what happened last year to make it to this point. This is one of those things where the story of these players, of these teams, of these coaches makes everything that much more exciting and that much more intimate. I mean, you and I as broadcasters always look for these things, but for the fans, those who may not know, what's the best story out of these 4 teams?
Well, the story I like the most is the Virginia story.
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at a team that was a number 1 seed last year, the first time being upset by a 16 seed, got a scare again going into this tournament, but they continue to battle, and there's so many different parallels with that team for a guy like myself. You look at their head coach, Coach Tony Bennett, his last game as a senior, where he played at Wisconsin Green Bay, was at Manhattan. My junior year, we beat them there in a thriller where Draddy may have moved over a couple of inches, Christian. That place was jumping, but he scorched us for 30-plus. I think he may have only missed 1 shot. And let's flip it to his associate head coach, Williford, Jason Williford. In 1993, when we went to the NCAA tournament, we played Virginia. He was a forward, a small forward on that team. He was my guarding assignment in that particular game. And then I'm going to flip it one more time with Virginia. their star player, DeAndre Hunter, 6'7", 225, redshirt sophomore, is from Philly, and I love that young man. So again, I got a lot of love for Virginia right
now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you bring it, and it's interesting, too, because I was thinking about this, and I brought this up at the top of the show. If Virginia were to win the national title, it would probably be one of, if not the best March Madness stories we've ever had, considering to be the first one seed to ever lose to a 16 and then win the championship the very next year. You look at, Jim Valvano's NC State team. You look at Rolly Massimino's Villanova squad against Patrick Ewing. You look at what Kemba Walker did with UConn to win the national title. North Carolina a couple of years ago after losing at the buzzer to come back and win the very next year. But this one, and I'm going to draw a little bit of a parallel to you because I do know your college basketball story, but to go from losing in your conference tournament your junior year to come back and win it all your senior year in the fashion that you guys did, that kind of redemption story, I know you have a soft place in your heart for that, but you take this Virginia team over the last 2 years, and they feel as though if they win the national title, it's one of the greatest stories we've ever seen in college basketball.
Classic case of perseverance, but again, keep in mind, they were number one seed both seasons.
Right.
But just think about all the chatter they heard all summer long coming into the season. The first number one seed to get beat by a 16 seed. You got to put that in perspective.
Right.
Going into that game, everybody in their bracket, you just assume Virginia's going to go to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
You lose that game, coming off that floor, how deflated and disappointed are you that you just lost the game to a number 16 seed?
Yeah.
And you have to live with that the entire summer, working out, going into the season. And think about their season. They had a good season, but everybody's like, okay, that means nothing. Let's see what you're going to do in this tournament.
Right.
And they had a scare early.
Yeah.
They could have easily folded, but they continued and persevered. Like I said earlier, top-tier teams just want to get out of those first two rounds.
Yep.
Just let's get rid of these guys here. Again, I know they're playing hard. I know they want everything. This is all they have. We need to get rid of you guys. Can we get past you so we can play some teams that we're a little bit more familiar with? And if we do lose, it's okay because that's what people may have thought could have happened. It's not really so much of an upset. So all that's playing in your mind.
He's Chris Smooth Williams, college basketball analyst, join us here on Press Row. I'm going to ask you this real quick because you and I were texting back and forth a couple of weeks ago about this, and I'm sure the people at CBS are upset that Zion is not playing this weekend. But is he the most exciting college basketball player you've ever seen?
Christian,
from a talent standpoint.
Great. He is super exciting. He's must-see television. Again, he's one of those guys, when you hear his name, you want to find out what's going on with him. Let's turn on the television. What did he do? What happened? And you brought up a great name when you said Allen Iverson, because very similar, that type of electricity was generated when you heard this young man's name. I think Zion, he's going to be box office wherever he goes. He's the type of guy who just attracts attention, and you love his personality. He plays with a lot of great energy.
No, he's incredible to watch. And you know me, it pains me to say that, to give a compliment to Duke. You know it pains me to say that, but he's incredible. And again, I mean, you and I were talking about it, and when I look down the list of college basketball guys that just set the place on fire, it's really, you don't do it over a whole season. You do it in maybe a game or a spurt, like
Right.
Kemba Walker did, or like Jerry McNamara did for Syracuse a few years ago. So that's the kind of stuff. It's just exciting to see that. Let me ask you this, and then I'll get to your final four picks here. And I've always had a trouble with how the NCAA seeds their teams. And you and I, being mid-major guys, always have an issue with the fact that there's not enough mid-majors, in my opinion.
Correct.
Auburn being in this Final Four may be the greatest 5 seed of all time because they're not a true 5 seed. They're a team that hasn't lost since, I believe, early January. They won the SEC. They beat the brakes off Tennessee twice to do so. This is, in my opinion, maybe the strongest case that the NCAA tournament struggles based off their seeding, because I don't see how Auburn is a legitimate 5 seed. They should have been seeded at least, at worst, a 3 seed, if not a 2.
Yeah, the seeding is always difficult year in and year out. Well, first, number one, considering we're mid-major guys,
yeah,
there are always a couple of mid-major teams
mm-hmm.
that get left out, and we'll use Hofstra as an example this season,
mm-hmm.
that you think should be in the tournament. So, again, you have some teams get left out who probably should be in, and then when you do your seeding, which can be so tough,
mm-hmm.
there's some teams who probably should be higher, have to be put in a lower position because a team wins a tournament they probably shouldn't have, or
right.
at least not expected to, and it just throws everything off. So the thought process is you have to go in and play and beat whatever team's in front of you. And I believe Coach Pearl has done a marvelous job coaching these guys up. Again, if I remember correctly, he's knocked off Kansas. He's knocked off Duke.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What are the teams he knocked
Carolina,
off? Carolina,
Kentucky.
Carolina,
Yeah.
Kentucky. There you have it. So, again, when you play against those top teams and you can beat them consistently or at least in a row like that, you have to tip your hat to him and his team.
So let's get to it then. The Final Four this weekend, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Virginia, and Auburn. Who do you got this weekend, and ultimately who do you have cutting down the nets on Monday night?
Let's start off with that 6:09 p.m. start game. That's number 5, Auburn, and number 1, Virginia. As much as I love Auburn, I love their guard play. I'm big on guards. I like their point guard play. Horace Spencer, let's give him some love. 6'8", 225 senior
mm-hmm.
from Philly. I gotta give my Philly love. But Jared Harper, number 1, 5'11", 175, quick as a cat. Brown knocks down the 3 from outside. I love Auburn. I like the way they play. I think they're on a nice roll. We just talked about the teams they knocked off. But I think Virginia might be too tough. I think Virginia's too tough. I think they're the epitome of a college basketball team. They play well together. I think that larger guards might be a little bit more difficult to defend. I love Hunter, a Philly guy, 6'7". He's a legit pro. Kyle Guy is tough. He makes shots. Ty Jerome, another guard, getting better size at 6'5", 6'2". So I'm going to give the nod to Virginia and Coach Tony Bennett, since we had some playing time together in Williford. So we give those guys a love so they get the nod in that first game. Game number 2, Christian, that's an 8:49 start. Number 3, Texas Tech. Number 2, Michigan State. Love Michigan State. Strong. Everybody knows they defend. They go to the glass. They're going to rebound the heck out of the basketball. One of my favorite players in college basketball is Cassius Winston. If you follow me on Facebook, I put up a post after their win. He's like the guy at the park who just knows how to win and makes everybody better. He'll probably be playing like that until he's about 45, 48 in that area. But, again, he's a winner. Like to see him play, and he gets that team going. Izzo, a tough guy, but he handles Izzo and his team well. I think they need to make some shots from the outside. I think Matt McQuaid, number 26'4" senior, has to knock down some outside shots. But Texas Tech, Christian, they defend. They don't defend well. They defend extremely well. I love Culver, 6'6", 195 sophomore, NBA lottery talent. Didn't play his best game against Gonzaga. I think he's going to have a breakout game. He's going to do some things we haven't seen from him. Very excited guy. I like Tariq Owens, 6'10", from St. John's transfer. And I think the glue to that team is Matt Mooney, 6'3" guard, redshirt senior. I love senior guards. I'm going to go with the upset in that one. It's not much of an upset. I like Texas Tech.
I like it. So Texas Tech, Virginia on Monday night.
Texas Tech, Virginia, and I think this is the epitome of college basketball. 2 very good coaches who put themselves in position, do a great job coaching their team, and I think just the solid play of Virginia will just wear down Texas Tech in the championship game.
All right, and it could be, like we talked about earlier, maybe one of the greatest college basketball stories we've seen in March Madness.
I think it'll be a great story when it closes out. A lot of tears. And you know what? I love to see the tears. I'm going to tell you exactly why, Christian. When you invest so much in something, and I think Johnny Dawkins say this after his team lost, when you invest as much as these teams and these players invest, at the end, there's always going to be some tears of joy or tears of sorrow. So you got to expect it.
As always,
I believe
Smooth.
There'll be tears of joy with Virginia when it's all said and done.
Well, it's we always expect greatness out of you, and that's what you give us every single time on the show. We appreciate it, as always.
It. Check this out, Christian. I got to touch on a little baseball.
Yeah.
I know that's your thing. I don't usually talk about baseball big. I'm a Philly guy. My Phillies are looking really good right now.
Yes, they are.
You got to give some love to Bryce Harper. How about the home run last night in Washington?
Listen, the way he is earning his money right now, he is certainly earning his money, and this is a Philadelphia team. I love how young this team is and how talented they are all across the diamond. They've got a couple of veterans in key places that I think are huge, like a Jake Arrieta in that rotation. Your Phillies are going to do well this year. I'm a big fan of them.
And was that must-see television? Again, like I said, I'm not a huge baseball guy.
Bryce is must-see. He is.
And you got to watch him.
He is. He's must-see. We appreciate it, Smooth, as always. Thanks so much for the time.
My guy.
That's Chris Williams. We'll talk about his Phillies in a little bit when we come back. We'll also get to your listener questions, close up shop. You're on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
This is Bryce Burge, host of Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. After this episode, come join us on a trip around the soccer world as we discuss club and country every Tuesday. Stamp your soccer passport by subscribing on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your Public House Media podcasts. And thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Listen to every episode and get the latest shows sent right to you. Subscribe to Press Row on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and Stitcher.com. Or visit us online at www.thephmedia.com. This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Play ball!
Well, Smooth got us talking baseball at the end of that. It's not often he does, but we'll bring it back with little cheap seats here, Alabama, on Press Row. Brought to you as part of the Public House Media Network. We click to your listener questions, close up shop. As always, you guys can find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. Email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. First one, Brandon wants to know what is up with Conor McGregor. I have no idea. This might be the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. This guy is him announcing retirement is very, very strange. Number one, and I thought was very much a negotiation ploy to try to get more out of the UFC, to try to get more money, whether it be ownership stake, whether it be bigger gates, whatever it is. And then what happened is unbelievable with this guy, as Conor then goes on a rampage on Twitter, going off on Khabib Nurmagomedov, who, by the way, absolutely tooled Conor McGregor the last time he was actually in an octagon, making comments about his wife and about his religion, which is all the stuff that really kind of leading up to that Khabib-Conor fight was what actually started all of that, and what made Khabib jump the fence was that Conor's camp was making these religious and racist marks towards Khabib. So the fact that he's continuously doing this and trying to double down again, it's unbelievable that Conor's continuing to do this, and I really do believe this. I said this to somebody. At first I thought it was a negotiation ploy. Now, what I really, truly, firmly believe after seeing Conor in his last couple of fights and after seeing him against Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor is a carnival. And I'm not talking about like, oh, let's go see the giraffes and the tigers and let's go see, the clowns at the carnival and have fun. I'm talking come in, steal your money. When people are done watching us, we pack up and move to the next town full of suckers. That is Conor McGregor right now. He is a carnival. He is a sideshow. He is not the talented MMA fighter that we all thought he was. At least he's not that anymore. And I think him, quote-unquote, retiring over Twitter is him, as like carnivals do, packing up the show and moving to the next town. What that next town is, I have no idea. And I have no idea what's going through this man's head. but it's really starting to put a very bad lens on his career and on the sport of MMA, and I really hope that somebody does something to stop this. I'm not sure what can be done, but it really does seriously bother me. All right, let's see here. Joseph in California wanting to know with LeBron and the Lakers, and I apologize, I asked this a couple weeks ago, but we finally got it on the show. Asking with LeBron and the Lakers not making the playoffs and LeBron being shut down, was this first year a failure? It was a massive, massive failure. And I'm not going to say it was a failure because of them missing the playoffs or because LeBron got hurt. It was a failure because of the Anthony Davis fiasco, because it broke apart that locker room, because it made all those young guys that LeBron chose to go play with after leaving Cleveland not trust him, not want to play for him. It created a hostile environment, and nothing can succeed in a hostile environment. The coach is probably going to change. A lot of these guys are going to get traded. Injuries definitely didn't help, especially to guys like Ball and Ingram and all those others. But the fiasco of the Anthony Davis trade situation made this a colossal failure in year one. So I really am disappointed in the Lakers, and really kind of disappointed in LeBron in that sense, because he knows to be better than that. And if the one thing he's chasing, the one reason he is playing, is that ghost that wears 23 in Chicago. Michael Jordan's the only reason he's still playing. And he may go down as statistically the greatest of all time, but he's chasing the ghost. And I'll be honest, this season made such a bigger hit on LeBron's legacy than losing as many NBA Finals as he has. Last question here. Eric wanted to know, the first week of Major League Baseball, which team that is leading their division is most likely to stay there the entire year? Well, let's look at this. You got the AL East, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles are up there. Minnesota Twins in the Central, Seattle Mariners in the West, the Mets and the Phillies in the National League East, Milwaukee Brewers in the Central, and the Dodgers in the West. I'm going to say the teams that are currently in first place right now, the Milwaukee Brewers have the best chance to actually win their division, simply because I look up and down the other divisions, and in the West, the Padres are really interesting to me. They're very, very interesting. I can't tell if they're going to be good or not. We'll wait and see. The Rockies, they didn't lose a whole lot from last year, so we'll see if they're able to actually continue on. In the East, it's a total crapshoot in the East. I think the Braves will get a lot better. The Nationals, I think, are still very talented. The Phillies, as we mentioned at the end of the chat with Smooth, I absolutely love. So in the National League, it's the Brewers most definitely easily. And then in the American League, I don't know if any of these teams actually do. The Astros are much better than their record in the first week. Seattle, as talented as they are, I don't think can hold this up throughout the entirety of a season. The Central is so strange. You never know each year between the Indians and the Tigers and the White Sox and the Royals. I really hope the Twins compete this year. I do like them a lot, especially with the talent that they have on that team and a guy like Byron Buxton and whatnot. And then the American League East is going to be the toughest division. The Orioles have started off a little bit hotter, but they will not be able to sustain that throughout. The Blue Jays are a very talented team. The Tampa Bay Rays have a great team, a team that won 90-plus games last year and didn't make the playoffs. The Yankees will be interesting because if they get healthy again at the right time, who knows? But the timing of these injuries with Miguel Andujar, with Stanton, with CeCe Sabathia, and all their pitching, Luis Severino, who knows if they're going to get healthy enough in time. And then the Red Sox, talk about a World Series hangover. This team has been atrocious through the first week of the season. They're allowing more runs so far than any other team in Major League Baseball except the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is insane to think of. And who knows when they're going to be able to turn that around, because it's all their pitching. Their starting pitching, which was so dominant in the postseason, who knows if they're going to be able to actually turn it around in time to be able to do something, especially if and when the New York Yankees become a healthy team. So we'll see how that happens. As always, we love you guys' questions. You can send them to us throughout the week. Twitter and Instagram handle at PressRowPHM. Email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com, and find us on Facebook, Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. You can find me on Twitter as well at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, and of course, you can find us on publichousemedia.org. Big thanks to Chris Williams for joining us talking college basketball. As always, we appreciate the time with him. Go find Smooth on all the social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Always got some good knowledge for you there. And until next week, I'm Christian Heimall. We cannot wait to see you guys right here on Thursday. Press Row, broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.